So again, a very warm welcome to everybody who's here on site and also online. We especially want to thank our friends online for all your expressions of concern. Hopefully you've seen the post on our website that we haven't had to evacuate. We're still here. Despite the smoky skies, everyone at the Abbey is safe. Our friends in Spokane are still, dealing with the whole rebuilding process. So if you're interested in helping out in that post, you'll find information as well about how to help out the Spokane community after this huge as the huge fire continues to be contained. So anyhow, thank you so much, folks on site, for coming despite difficult circumstances and smoky skies. We're so glad to have you here this morning. We're going to get ready to welcome Venerable Sangye Kadro into the space to guide meditation. So if you'd like, please stand up. And our chant leader, Venerable Samten, will help, Venerable Chini this morning will guide us in reciting the Buddha's mantra to help prepare our minds for the teaching and the meditation.
Again, join again if you wish. If you don't, that's fine. The syllables are on the screen, so you can follow along if you wish. Tayata mune mune maha mune soha. Tayata mune mune maha mune soha. Tayata mune mune maha mune soha.
Good morning. And we usually begin with 3 prostrations or bows. If you know how to do them and want to do them, you are welcome to do them all together. And if you don't want to or don't know how, then you can just observe us. It's just paying respects to the Buddha. Please be seated. Okay, so my job is to lead you in a meditation. And some of you might be here for the first time. It's your first visit to the Abbey. Yes. Okay, well, welcome. Thank you for coming. And so what we've been doing in these monthly events, sharing the Dharma Day, is focusing on the topic of anger. Venerable Children is reading through a book that she wrote called Working with Anger. And so I think we all feel angry sometimes. It's understandable that we feel at least a moment of anger about things happening in our country or around the world. And also in the recent situation in Spokane of the fire. And, one of the fires, probably, I think it was the most destructive one, was started deliberately by somebody. So it's quite understandable that anger would come up. Like, how could somebody do such a thing? But so anger is kind of a normal human emotion, and probably animals get angry too. But then we need to investigate, is it helpful? Does it help to get angry? Does it bring any benefit, any good results to ourselves, to others, to the world? Or does it make things worse? So this is something we need to explore. And in Buddhism, and I'm sure other traditions as well, there are alternatives to reacting with anger. We don't have to be angry. And even if it does come up in our mind, like a spark of anger coming up in our mind, which is the case, even if we're seriously following the path, the spiritual path that leads to awakening, it takes a long time before we can really overcome anger so that it doesn't come up anymore. So it's going to be there for a while. But even if it does come up, we can do something about it. We can work on our mind, just like a spark. You know, if a spark flies into a place where there's dry grass, right? We don't have to just say, oh, well, too bad. We can do something about that. And so we can work on our mind and change our way of thinking and our way of seeing things, our perspectives on things. And so that instead of having an agitated, angry mind, we can have a more calm, peaceful, clear state of mind. So it does take time and effort to learn how to do this, but it can be done. And one important step in the beginning is to want to do it, right? We have to want to work on our anger. You might say, oh, I don't want to be angry anymore. I want to get rid of my anger. But you have to really want that deep down inside and based on your own investigation, your own exploration, investigating the results of anger versus the results of other states of mind, like patience, love, compassion. And so to get to that point of wanting to work on anger, then it's helpful to see clearly the results of anger versus the results of patience and compare those two. So that's what we're going to meditate on today. Another important thing is to realize that we do have choices. It's like when we if you're driving and you come to a roundabout, a traffic circle, there's different roads going off in different directions. So you have choices there where you go. You can just follow the car in front of you, wherever that ends up, or you can follow the road that you normally take, but that may not lead you where you want to go. So you do have a choice there. You can choose the road that will take you where you do want to go, lead you in the right direction. So it's similar with our mind. Even if something comes up in our mind like anger, we have a choice about what we do with that. That's important to understand as well. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we'll start with some prayers, and they'll be on the screen. You're free to recite the prayers or not as you wish. And then we'll do some silent meditation for 5 or 10 minutes. And I'll give some instructions in case anyone isn't familiar with meditation. And then we'll do a guided reflective meditation, what we call analytical meditation on this topic of patience. So I'll be talking, giving you things to think about, and then you have time to contemplate those. Okay, so these prayers are to help us get into a good state of mind, have a good motivation for what we're doing here.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will obtain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness as its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrow's bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of violence, attachment, and anger.
So the last prayer we read expresses positive thoughts and feelings about other beings, like love, wishing all beings to be happy, compassion, wishing everyone to be free of suffering. So try to feel how wonderful that would be if all suffering could disappear and if everyone could have happiness, all they need, all they wish for, to be comfortable and experience physical and mental well-being. And then see if you can have the wish, the aspiration that what we're doing here today, this meditation and the other events later, that these things will help us to be more helpful to others and be able to relieve their suffering and bring them peace and happiness. Okay, so let's do a little bit of silent meditation to get ourselves settled down in the present. So when meditating, it's good if you can sit straight with your back straight, your legs either crossed in a comfortable position if you're sitting on the floor, or if you're sitting on a chair, just have your feet flat on the floor. And you can have your hands resting in your lap or on your knees as you wish. And see if you notice any tension there may be in your body, anywhere, like in your back, your shoulders, your neck, your abdomen. And if you do notice any tension, see if you can let it go. You can imagine it melting and flowing out of you, sinking into the earth below. Or just dissolving, disappearing into space. Even if you're not able to let go of all tension, just do the best you can. Let's try to have your body feeling relaxed and light like a cloud. And also relax your mind. That means putting aside any thoughts that aren't related to what we're doing here right now. Thoughts of the past, including what you were doing this morning. Thoughts of the future, what you're going to do later today, next week. And just let your mind be right here in the present moment and the present place. And focus your mind, your awareness on your breathing. Feel the sensations in your body as your breath is coming in and going out. And make that the focal object for your attention. It can be a bit like an anchor, keeping a ship in one place so it doesn't float away. How focusing on our breathing helps us stay in the present. Our breathing is happening right here, right now. So when we're paying attention to it, then our mind, our awareness is in the here and now. Just with your mind, be aware of the breath as it's coming in and going out, one breath after another. And of course, other thoughts will pop up in your mind, or you'll hear sounds. Your attention may get distracted away from the breath. But as soon as you notice that, just let go of that other object and return your attention, your awareness to your breathing. And even if you have to do that again and again, it's okay, it's fine. That's part of the practice. So now we'll transition to the second part of the meditation, analytical meditation. So start by thinking of a time when you felt angry, irritated, frustrated, impatient. It could have been very strong or very mild, but some form of anger happening in your mind. And see if you can remember how it felt to be angry, how it felt physically, what kind of physical sensations did you have? And how did it affect your mind? What was your state of mind at that time? And if there were any other people around at the time you were angry, how do you think it affected them? And, and now think of a time when you were able to avoid getting angry. So maybe it was a child, maybe one of your own kids, or a neighborhood kid, or one of your students. And the kid did something they weren't supposed to do, or they didn't do something they were supposed to do. But you didn't get angry at them. Maybe you thought, he's just a kid, he's still learning. or if it was your own child who you've been loving and caring for since they first appeared in this world, your love can overpower anger at them. So see if you can remember what it felt like to not be angry when you could be angry, and instead have patience, fortitude. So patience or fortitude is the ability to remain calm internally and undisturbed in the face of harm or difficulties or any situations where we could get angry. So see if you can remember what it felt like when you had that ability to be patient. How did it feel physically in your body? And mentally, what was your mental state at that time? And on the emotional level, what was that like? And if there were any other people around at that time, how do you think it affected them? You being able to remain calm, not get angry. So how does that compare with the results of anger? If you were to put those two situations side by side and compare them, what conclusions do you have? And if you were able to remain patient with that child, then do you think this is something you could learn to do with other people in other situations? And is that something you want to do? Patience is sometimes misunderstood. People sometimes think it means being passive and doing nothing when there's a wrongdoing. But that's not true. If a child or anyone does something wrong, we can correct them. We should correct them if we can, if it's appropriate. But we can do it without anger, hatred, impatience. We can do it with a calm and caring state of mind. And whatever we do with that kind of mind will probably be more effective. So anger makes our mind disturbed, unclear, unable to assess the situation intelligently and figure out the best way to respond. Patience, on the other hand, enables our mind to be more calm and clear so we can make good choices and decisions that will probably lead to better results. So now to conclude the meditation, based on whatever you understood during this meditation, you can draw your own conclusion. For example, you might think, yes, I really want to learn how to be more patient and how to manage my anger. Or you might think, I'm not sure. I want to think about this more and decide to do more exploration of this topic. So whatever conclusion makes sense to you, then bring that into your mind. And let's just mentally dedicate the meditation we just did with a good motivation. So let's dedicate that it will help ourselves and others in the world, bring more peace and happiness, and relieve suffering. Okay, well, thank you. We'll have a break now.
Thank you very much, Venerable. And I invite you to rise as we wait for Venerable to leave the hall.
We can chant the Buddha's mantra again for a little bit to settle our mind. That's what we were chanting before, the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha. Tayata ho mune mune maha mune soha. 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 Okay, so welcome to all the brave ones who sliced through the layers of smoke to get here. We're glad you came. Okay. So let's remember our motivation and why we're here. You know, that we look at our life in samsara and it's not totally satisfactory. And we look at our mind and we see good qualities, and we also see ignorance, anger, and attachment. That causes a lot of problems. So, not to mention one of the biggest problems, which is the self-centered attitude. So seeing these as problems, you know, that cause us harm and make us do things that harm other people, then we want to free ourselves of these things, these kind of qualities, these situations. and instead develop a compassionate heart and a wise heart that thinks in a very big way about not just my own happiness, but everybody's situation. Yeah. And so we want to cultivate that kind of compassionate, wise mind. And one of the biggest obstacles to cultivating it happens to be an old friend of ours called anger. Yeah, do you know anger? The mind that says, I am your friend. I will protect you so that nobody else can harm you. And we salute our anger and do whatever it says. And then we wind up with a whole bunch of problems. So the book that we're focusing on this year is Working with Anger. Yeah. And it's taken from Shanti Deva's text, Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, chapter 6, okay, which is one of my very good friends. That chapter helped me calm down a lot in some difficult situations. So we've been talking, the last few sharing the Dharma days about anger, and I've been reading from this and talking about it. So we will continue with that today. And in particular, we'll be talking about the role of meditation in helping us to calm our anger. Okay, so I'm going to go over something we talked about last time and then continue. Okay, so the meditation of observing our anger involves sitting quietly and instead of paying attention to the storyline behind the anger, simply noting the various physical and mental sensations that arise and pass as the anger flows through us. Yeah, that sounds well and good. Can you focus on the physical and mental sensations when you're angry? What are you focusing on? The story of how mean that other person was. Okay, well, I'm just talking about myself. I write a story about I'm the sweet, innocent victim who means well, and these other people don't understand me. They get angry. They blame me for things that I would never do. And faults that I absolutely don't have. And then I get angry at them. And I go round and around thinking about what they did and how could they say that and everything I want to say back to them to get even. Anybody else do that? Yeah. So this meditation, one of the meditations for working with our anger, involves just sitting there, ceasing the storyline and just focusing on what's going on in your body, the physical sensations of anger. Okay, so for some people, this technique works really, really well. You just sit, you observe the sensations, and because you're focusing on your body, you're not focusing on the storyline. Okay. Now, but then there's other people who have to understand why their storyline is very poorly written. Yeah. And I know for myself, I had to really understand why anger is is a mind that incorrectly apprehends the situation. Yeah, because usually when we're angry, we think we're perceiving everything exactly the way it is, and everybody else is wrong. Yeah, and that's why they need to be quiet and agree with us. Yeah, because we're right, right? Yeah, we would never be wrong, not us. Yeah. So, uh, to begin to doubt our anger, for me, I know was very important. Just watching the sensations, that quieted me down a bit. But why should I get rid of my anger? Why? It protects me. And it was only when I start getting into, how anger works and how it misapprehends things, how it projects things, onto situations that don't have those qualities. It's only then that I began to really understand why I should begin to counteract my anger. Yeah. Okay. So this one of observing the physical sensations we can do, of the blood rushing to our head, our heart pounding, or a deadening ache in our stomach. We may note the emotional pain of hurt feelings, disappointment, and unfulfilled expectations. Yeah, so the hurt feelings are often what propel the anger because we don't like unpleasant feelings. So simply observing those, but not reacting to them by clinging to them or pushing them away, we experience them as they are in the present. In doing so, we watch them arise and cease of their own accord. So that's one way to do it, just observing, what's going on in your mind and your body, but without reacting to it. Okay. So let's continue. A hospice nurse once commented to me that she had noticed that even if people try, they cannot sustain a negative emotion for very long. Whatever grief, anger, despair, or resentment may arise in our mind, its nature is impermanent and it will pass. Yeah, and she was a hospice nurse and, for many years and saw people having a lot of different emotions, both the person who's dying and the family. And, she said that none of those emotions, as intense as they are, can last forever. But when we're in the middle of it, boy, it seems like there's no respite. We'll never get out. Okay. So everything is impermanent and will pass. If we observe closely, we can even note our emotions and thoughts changing moment by moment. Such mindfulness can be very effective in letting go of negative emotions. Okay, so techniques is another idea how to work with anger that, for me personally, works much better. Techniques in which we reframe the situation constitute most of this volume. They fall in the category of analytical meditation, in which we investigate our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions to discern two things. Are they accurate and are they beneficial? Because we automatically assume that what's going through our mind is accurate and that it's beneficial. But it's good to question our own mind sometimes and not just believe whatever it coughs up. Yeah, because sometimes our mind is capable of, conspiracy. Where are all these conspiracy theories coming from? It's our mind creating them. Okay. So we also practice looking at situations in different ways, changing the way we describe and interpret situations subdues anger because we stop exaggerating qualities and we stop projecting negative qualities onto people, situations, objects, whatever. Okay. In this way, the external event, its meaning, and our position in it appear differently to us, and our anger evaporates. Okay, let me give you an example. Personal. I do a lot of true confession in these teachings. So once I was with a friend of mine who was a mediator, and we were at a conference, or a coordinating committee with a bunch of Buddhists from a particular organization. And he and I had arranged to do something and to show people about how mediation works. Yeah. But the person who was coordinating everything, had given us a time slot and told us it was okay. And then at the last minute, told us that there was no time or space in the agenda for our presentation. What? We organized this presentation. We did it with a good intention to benefit you people. And now you're saying that there's no time and no space for our presentation. Well, I was not happy. Yeah, my friend, he wasn't happy either, but I was the most unhappy. Yeah. Maybe because I had counted on doing this the most, or because I knew the people involved better than he knew them. Anyway, after that, this person, who was actually the head of the organizing committee, so an important person in the organization, every time I saw him, my enemy, it's like, this guy doesn't do anything good. Yeah. Okay, we have the same teacher, we have the same philosophy. I know he's trying to cultivate compassion for all sentient beings, but I don't believe he's really doing it because of what he did to me. I was ticked, and we're in the same. We run with the same group of people, so I'm always seeing him and always bumping into him. This guy, in my eyes, did nothing good. Based on that one incident, that is proof that there's nothing good about him, right? Yeah? Do you have that bar for disapproving of people? All it takes is one incident, of them doing something that we really don't want them to do. Yeah. And the rest of their life is insignificant. Yeah. Because that one incident shows that they don't care about anybody. They don't do anything right. They're entirely selfish. They blame other people for things that are their own thing, and there's nothing good about them. Okay, so I carried that thought for a long time, even as I circumambulated the stupa that was made especially in honor of his teacher and my teacher, because we shared the same teacher. Well, if you practiced what our teacher said, you wouldn't have done this. But then I had to say, if you practiced what our teacher said, you wouldn't hold a grudge against him. Oh, okay. But how was my anger wrong? You know, how was it wrong? Well, first of all, I was judging one person's entire existence based on something he said in 5 minutes. Is that accurate? Is that fair? Is that smart? No. So something is wrong with the way I'm perceiving the object, him, you know, because the way I'm doing it is really taking something this big and it's, you know, the whole meaning of his entire life. No other meaning. Yeah. So when I began to see how my anger is based on exaggerating negativities or projecting negativities, you know, and that I began to see, oh, my anger is not a correct perception. Yeah. And then when I thought of his position, trying to organize a morning full of many different presentations, and there's no time for all of them, and to do all of them, you know, 60% doesn't work. So he had to cut something, and it just happened to be our thing. Yeah. So maybe I should, you know, if I were in that position of having to cut something out of an agenda for the benefit of the audience, I might have done the same thing. Of course, I wouldn't have cut my own, but I would have had to cut somebody's. Yeah. So that's the way he thought, you know, he had to cut somebody's. Well, might as well be these people. Yeah. Okay. So that helped me calm down and begin to see that, you know, judging him, he was maybe 45 years old at that time. You know, judging 45 years of a human life based on 5 minutes was not very fair. Yeah. And that I should look at all of his qualities and, you know, open my mind a bit and basically calm down and give him another chance. Yeah. Okay. So really looking at our anger and seeing how it gets skewed. Yeah. How when we're mad at somebody, they cannot do anything right. Yeah. Okay. So meditations on love and compassion strengthen those two positive emotions in our minds and in our hearts. And that's beneficial because those emotions are the direct opposite of what anger is doing. Okay. And when we make our mind very familiar with love and compassion, then it can act as a buffer so that we don't get angry, you know, or at least not angry as much as we used to before. Okay. So doing those meditations is very, very helpful. Okay. The wisdom realizing reality also works well. It cuts through the ignorance that lies behind anger. And this wisdom is generated through a specific type of analytical meditation, which will be explained later in the book. Okay, so each person will find affinity with certain techniques for working with anger. And we're all different, and this is why the Buddha taught many different ways of working with anger. Okay, and our way may be different from our friend's way. Yeah, my friend may like to just watch the sensations in the body. We may like to do something more analytical. Another friend may want to develop meditate on love and compassion. Okay, so we're different individuals. We have to see what works well for us. And we may choose one technique, but it's going to, what I've found is it depends on the situation too, which technique I use. Yeah, because in some situations or when I'm in a particular mood, certain techniques work better than others. Okay, so you have to learn, become familiar with all these different ways of dealing with anger, and and then begin to prescribe for yourself which one you're going to use. Okay, so for some, observing emotions and thoughts subdues the anger. For others, a more analytical approach is necessary. And through investigation, they see clearly that anger is a distorted state of mind that misapprehends its object. Darn, I was sure I was right. You mean I have to admit that I'm wrong? Okay, or they may need to reflect on the disadvantages of anger in order to awaken their determination to step back and not blindly indulge it. Okay, so sometimes just looking at what we say and do when we're angry is enough to show us that we want to do something about it. Yeah. There's a question I frequently ask when discussing anger. Who do you get the angriest at and say the nastiest, mean, horrible things to? Somebody you love or a stranger? Yeah. Would you ever say to a stranger what you say to your spouse or to your parents or to your best friend? Yeah. Who do we dump on the most? The people we care about the most. Isn't that strange? The people that we care about the most, we are the most harsh to when we're angry. Yeah, we would never say to a stranger what we say to our loved ones. Do you agree? Yeah. So when we see the effect of anger on the relationships that we cherish the most, then we begin to think, oh, I should really do something about my anger because it's really interfering with relationships that I cherish. Yeah. And I can't continue to blame the problem on the other person. Although I know it really is his problem and it's all due to him and No, I can't continue to do that. That's not accurate. I played a role in it. Really? I played a role? No, it was all their fault. All their fault. I mean, I'm sweet, innocent me. Yeah, Susie cream cheese. Yeah. Okay. So because different approaches work for different people, the Buddha, who's a skillful teacher, taught a variety of techniques so that each person could establish a repertoire that works well for them. Okay, and the next section is don't expect anger to disappear overnight. Come on. I came to hear this talk because I want my anger to go away by tomorrow morning. I'm fed up with it. And now you're going to talk about don't expect my anger to disappear overnight. Who do you think you are, holding a talk on anger and then acting like this? Yeah? You get what I mean? So sometimes dissolving our anger, even when we are in a peaceful environment, is difficult. People at the Abbey will say that's a peaceful environment. And when you get angry, can you dissolve it instantly and you're forever free from anger? Okay. Yeah. But if we keep trying, we will gradually subdue our anger. Then, when we go to work, school, or family gatherings, we'll have at least a fighting chance to work with our anger should it arise. Yeah. With constant practice over time, we will be able to prevent anger from manifesting. That is possible to do, but we have to work at it. As we develop the wisdom realizing the emptiness of inherent existence, explained in chapter 18, so don't get mad at me because I'm not talking about it now. As we understand that meditation and actualize higher stages of the path, we will be able to eliminate anger and its seeds from our mind stream completely. Okay. So now there's an example, somebody named Elizabeth. None of the names here are the real names of the people who told me these stories. So Elizabeth's practice is a good illustration of this gradual progression. Like many people, she was sensitive to criticism, and at the slightest hint of it would become angry. How many of you are sensitive to criticism and get angry when it happens? Oh, let's try that again. I'm not sure everybody's telling the truth. Who is sensitive to criticism? Oh, there's a few people back there. Okay, well, maybe I should criticize you, and then you can show how you're not sensitive. Yeah, you jerk. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, like many people, Elizabeth was sensitive to criticism, and at the slightest hint of it would become angry, either lashing out at the other person or withdrawing and sulking. How many of you like to lash out? How many of you like to sulk? Oh boy, we have a group of sulkers here. Oh, that makes it very good. You know, if you live with another person who's a sulker, you both go to your own rooms and you sulk. Yeah. Then you come together in the kitchen and you scream at each other and then go back to your room and sulk some more. It's very effective, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember how your parents used to fight? Yeah. And their technique of handling quarrels. Yeah. Yeah. And then you're a kid and you're going, you know, I remember being kind of scared when my parents fought, especially when they were fighting one time. My brother looks, if mom and dad get divorced, who do you want to go with? Yes, my brother gets to the point. Yeah. Okay. So after hearing teachings about patience and fortitude, Elizabeth discussed them with friends who also heard them, and asked her teacher questions to make sure she understood the teachings correctly. So this is very important when we hear teachings, because sometimes we hear certain words and we impute on those words meanings from our past that these words don't have right now. Okay. So it's really important to make sure we understand the teachings correctly, and discussing with friends is a good way to do it. Yeah. So that's what we'll be doing this afternoon. Yeah. So then in her meditation, she recalled past situations in which she had been criticized that were still emotionally charged for her. Do you have situations like that? Maybe that happened a few days ago, a year ago, a decade ago, 50 years ago, something someone said or did to you, and you're still mad about it. Yeah, you rein in your anger, but all you have to do is remember that situation, and you're mad. The person is not here. They may even have passed away, or you lost touch with them. That doesn't matter. We remember that situation in vivid technicolor, and we just even hear the person's name. Yeah? Okay, so this was what happened with Elizabeth. So she, in her meditation, she would remember these situations and then practice the various techniques involved in new ways of looking at the situation. For example, sometimes she looked at her own hypersensitivity and tried to let go of the previous conceptions underlying it. Now, I know none of you are hypersensitive. Yeah, no, none of us are. Yeah, we're not hypersensitive. And we just understand reality correctly, right? Okay. For example, she looked at her own hypersensitivity. At first, her mind was resistant to looking at it. Imagine that. Always saying, yes, but, and then thinking of more reasons why she was right and the other person was wrong. That's why I'm not hypersensitive, because I'm right and you're wrong. Okay. After being criticized, she would still find herself talking behind the other person's back to retaliate. Oh, none of us do that here. Yeah. If you're mad at somebody to go at work, I know you're very good people. You don't go to other employees and say, guess what the boss made? Yeah. No, you don't do that, do you? Yeah. Oh, you do. Oh, thank you for telling the truth. Yeah. I think some people, but often when we've been criticized, we go and talk to a friend. We want to talk to somebody who we know will side with us. Yeah. And that's the qualifications of being a friend, that they will always side with me. Even if I'm wrong, they will side with me because I'm never wrong. Okay. So after being criticized, she would still find herself talking behind the other person's back to retaliate, smear that person's reputation. Look what the boss said to me. Okay. But when she got home at night, she would sit quietly and apply the techniques until the anger diminished. She also did purification practices which involved regretting her behavior and resolving to avoid such behavior in the future. So these purification practices are very helpful. Yeah. And the next day, she tried to rectify the situation with the other person, going and talking about it. She continued her practice, and slowly the new ways of framing the situations became more familiar and comfortable in her mind. In her daily life, she could not think of the antidotes fast enough to actually use them in situations that happened unexpectedly. Yeah. But at least she began to recognize anger arising and stop herself from verbally going after the other person. And so stopped herself also from creating a scene. Yeah. Don't you love that? When you're in a bus, in a public place, and you're in a theater even, when people used to go to the cinema, and the person in front of you was having a quarrel with the person sitting next to them. Yeah, wasn't that lovely? Yeah, and they created a scene right there in the middle of the theater, forgetting about everybody else who was now an audience, not only for what's on the screen, but for what they're doing. Okay. But as Elizabeth practiced more, the antidotes became more familiar, and she could recall and apply them at the actual time the criticism was being said, and she was hearing it. Now, when a situation ended, her heart was calm, and she no longer carried animosity around with her the rest of the day. So patience, fortitude, love, compassion, and altruism were firmer in her mind now. And so needless to say, her relationships with other people improved dramatically, as did her internal sense of well-being, because she had calmed her anger. Yeah, because, when there are some people who say, well, I'm just an angry person. That's the way I am, It's my family was angry. I am genetically angry. Yeah. Or everybody, maybe it wasn't genetic, but I just learned it from watching all my relatives. Everybody is screaming at each other. Oh, that's one side of my family. Yeah, my family was great. But my mother's side of the family, whenever there was a family event, and you tried to make a seating arrangement where people should sit, it was so difficult, because this one's not speaking to that one, who's not speaking to this one, who's not. So you can't put this one and this one at the same table. Put this one at another table with that one. That's okay. But then this person can't go at that table because he didn't speak to this. Yeah. Anybody else have a family like that? Oh, two other people. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, 3. Okay. Yeah. But even if we're from a family like that, we don't participate in it, do we? Yeah. Okay. So as Elizabeth's meditation practice developed over the years and the lifetimes, she will gain a single-pointed concentration, and thus the manifest destructive emotions like anger won't arise in her mind for long stretches of time. Wouldn't that be nice? She will continue studying the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, and the path to awakening contemplating it and meditating on it until she realized the nature of reality directly. Then she will use this wisdom to cleanse anger and its seed from her mind stream completely. So that's just showing the trajectory. It's going to take a while, okay, probably many lifetimes, but it's really possible to subdue our anger in that way. So now we're going to go into some of the antidotes to anger. Yeah. I'm going to be, I don't know, I feel like talking about one of them that I like. This may not be this one. Okay. So I, like everybody else, except a few of you, don't like being criticized. Yeah. And yeah, because I feel like that people are not understanding me, they're not listening to me, they're not accepting me. You know, they're exaggerating a simple situation. They're not giving me credit for all the good things I do. I could go on and on. Okay. But essentially, somebody criticizing me is unfair, totally uncalled for and unfair. Okay. So at one point, I began to look at how often I criticize other people. Yeah, because initially it felt like I get a lot more criticism than I give. But when I started looking at how often I criticize people, I started counting not only what I say, but what goes on in my mind. And I discovered that I criticize people a whole lot. Yeah. And if it's going on in my mind, it has a good likelihood of coming out of my mouth too. Okay. So I began to see, yeah, okay, I criticize others. And then I thought about it. Okay, how often do I criticize others? Every day. How many times a day do I criticize others? In my mind, many times. Yeah. The noodles aren't cooked well enough. Yeah. The baked goods are raw. Somebody didn't close the door all the way. They didn't latch it. Yeah. Somebody left their own thing out in a public place. Yeah. I pick at faults very easily. Yeah. And sometimes they, come out of my mouth. Like, these people who do these actions are wrong and they're bad, and don't they realize they shouldn't act like that? Yeah. And I realized this goes through my mind a lot every day. And then I thought, how often do I get criticized? Actually, I don't get criticized every day. Yeah. And when I compared the amount of criticism I dished out, either in my mind or out of my mouth, compared to the amount of criticism I received, there was no comparison. I was much more critical of others than they were of me, in terms of them saying critical things to me. And it was like, oh, I criticize other people a lot. Why am I so surprised that they criticize me? Yeah. Do you remember what you tell your kids, which is probably what your parents told you? Yeah, don't throw sand at the other kids because they will throw sand back at you. Don't criticize other people because they will criticize you. It's like, oh, there's some truth to that, except I criticize more than others. So why am I getting angry about it? Yeah. I've heard the Buddha's teachings about karma, that is basically, simply put, the boomerang effect. Whatever you send out comes back to you. Yeah, it's in the Bible too, isn't it? You reap what you sow. Yeah, that same kind of idea of however you act towards others, it's going to come back to you. And I went, oh, okay, that's what's happening. How can I blame others for criticizing me when I criticize others much more than they criticize me? Okay, get out the duct tape. Yeah. I wish I could duct tape the thoughts in my mind sometime, but I can't get the duct tape in there. Okay. So the next section is called Understand Each Other's Needs and Concerns. Okay, so two parties in conflict often talk past each other. Each one is certain that what he or she thinks is the main issue, the motivation he has contributed to the other person, and the way the situation appears to him are accurate. Okay, so if I'm mad, every one of us thinks I'm perceiving the situation correctly. My motivation for, telling you what you did wrong is correct. And what we're even arguing about, the way I apprehend it, I know exactly what we're arguing about. And I'm just sure that it's the same thing you know that we're arguing about. Okay. However, these interpretations are often flawed. A few examples will clarify this point. So at age 17, Sarah was sure her parents were overprotective. They always wanted to know exactly where she was, who she was with, and what time she would be home. If she was going to be even 10 minutes late, she had to phone her parents so that they wouldn't worry that she had been in a car accident. Her parents, on the other hand, loved Sarah and wanted to make sure she was safe. They were concerned that she may not yet be able to assess, evaluate, and handle potentially difficult situations. Okay, so Sarah was angry because her parents were overprotective. Her parents were angry because they were unsure whether Sarah was really grown up enough to evaluate and know, when she was safe, when there was danger involved. Okay, so, the more Sarah tried to assert that she was capable of making decisions and running her own life, the more her parents seemed to try and restrict her movements. And the more her parents did that, the more she asserted that she was an independent individual and didn't need her parents looking over her shoulder all the time. So they were caught in a vicious cycle. Okay, what was the issue for Sarah? What were they fighting about? Autonomy. Sarah said, we're fighting. I am an individual. I am all of 17. I know the world. I know how to handle myself. I know how to evaluate situations. Get off my back, Mom and Dad. I am an adult. What were parents fighting over? What was the issue for them? Safety. Yeah, she's 17. She hasn't had a lot of experience in the world. Yeah, can she really tell when there's danger around her? Can she really evaluate, what is likely to happen in different situations? Yeah. So Sarah's talking about autonomy. Her parents were talking about safety. They were totally arguing past each other, not even about the same topic. But each one assumed that it was the same topic. So Sarah's saying, my parents don't want me to be autonomous. And parents are saying, Sarah is so foolish. She doesn't recognize that she doesn't understand the world yet. Yeah, totally missing each other like that. How many times have we been in conflicts with people when we were talking past each other? Yeah. Okay, so in looking at the situation more closely, Sarah saw that she and her parents were talking past each other and quarreling over two different issues. For her, the conflict was about autonomy and independence. She felt like she was an adult and knew how to make wise decisions, and resented what she perceived to be her parents' lack of trust, their interference in her life, and their trying to control her. Are you having a flashback to when you were a teenager? Yeah. She realized that for her parents, the conflict was about safety. Looking at the situation from their viewpoint, she began to see that her parents were not trying to control her. Rather, because they loved her, they wanted her to be safe. And once she saw this, Sarah was able to let go of her resentment, and she, from her side, stopped quarreling with her parents. Okay, so once one partner in a conflict steps back, the conflict can't continue. Yeah, you just need one defection. I wish it happened that easily in wars. Yeah, in personal conflict, one person decides, I'm tired of this. Yeah, then, family dinners are better. Yeah, but wow, in war, difficult. Okay, and once she stopped participating in the conflict, her parents also did. Yeah, so in this case, it was Sarah who was the first one to realize they were talking past each other. But it could equally have been the parents realizing that they were talking past each other and decided that maybe they needed to give Sarah a little bit of credit, that she was growing up and that they couldn't control everything was doing and would have to trust that the education they gave her beforehand was sufficient to protect her from danger now. Okay. So, although Sarah's parents from time to time still seemed overly concerned about her, Sarah stopped being annoyed because she started realizing it's because her parents cared about her. They were not doing a trip on her. They were expressing their care. Yeah. How many times have we cared about somebody and they've gotten mad at us? Yeah. Because they're not seeing the care. They're seeing, I don't know, we're telling them what to do. We're not understanding their feelings, whatever it is. Now, reverse the situation. How many times has somebody told us something because they care about us? But we got angry at them. We do that too, don't we? We don't realize that it's so, why is somebody pointing out a fault I have? It's because they care about me. Yeah. That's hard sometimes for us even to let that thought in, but very often it's true. Yeah. Okay. So Sarah stopped being annoyed when her parents told her things. But an incident between her grandmother and her father confirmed her understanding of her parents' concerns and the foolishness of becoming angry at them. Because one day she observed her father, who was 65 years old, and his mother, who was 85 or whatever. And this is my story. So I watched, my grandma tell my dad, who himself is a grandparent, but my grandma telling my dad to make sure to put on a sweater so he didn't catch cold. Okay? When I saw that, it dawned on me, once a parent is always going to see their child like that. And they're always going to want to offer some wise advice, like, you're 65 years old, but you might go out in the cold and get sick. So I'm going to remind you to put on a sweater. But once you understand that, then you don't get angry when people tell you stuff. You begin to see, oh, they care about you. This is the way, they show care. Years later, when Sarah was in her 30s, this is also a personal one, except I changed the details of the story. Okay, I'll tell you the story as it really is. I won't read the text. Okay, so my brother is getting married. Yeah, and there's some, discussion about what everybody's wearing. So I'm having breakfast with my mother, my future sister-in-law, and my sister. And my mom, and I don't know, 30-something. And my mom looks at me. I'm already a nun. Yeah. And she knows what I usually wear. She knows my usual hairstyle. And my mom said, oh, when Russ is getting married, I have the perfect dress for you to wear. It's wine colored, the same color that you wear. It's a different style, but it's long, it goes to your ankles. And, I bought it for myself, but we're about the same size, so it'll fit you perfectly. How about wearing it? Okay. And I said, okay. And that was it. Yeah. And I did wear it. Yeah. But right after that conversation, mom got up, she had to go do something. And my future sister-in-law and my sister look at me and they say, we can't believe she told you what to wear. You're an adult and she's still picking out your clothes. And we're even more floored that you didn't get angry at her. And at that moment, I realized, oh, that's because I've actually matured. I've grown up. If it makes her happy to tell me what to wear, it's fine. I don't need to argue about my autonomy anymore because I know I'm an adult and I know I can choose my own things to wear. I do every morning, and it's a very easy choice. I don't spend nearly as much time as mom does picking out what to wear every day. Yeah, but I realized, hey, I don't need it makes her happy. I'll wear that. Yeah. One less argument. Yeah. So I have an interesting family. I'll tell you another story. You'll have to shut me up, otherwise, I'll pretend you're a therapist and I'll tell you everything. Okay. Now, which story was I going to tell you? I've got to pick one of them. Mm-hmm. Okay, telling me what to wear. Yes, my mother's family likes to argue a lot. Yeah. She has 3 siblings, and they all argued. Okay. And even my dad said, your mother's family, he said, they argue. And it's true. So where was I going with that? Yeah, they argue a lot. So what? What? Yeah, that one works. No, that one was with somebody else's family. She knows all my stories. Yeah. What? The property on the lake. Yes, they all quarrel a lot. Yeah. Okay, I'll do that one. So, yeah, my mother's family, I think maybe my mother's grandmother, that generation, I don't know, it was way back. But they had some property that all the siblings bought together. Yeah. And there were different, apartments on it, and different families had a different apartment. And I was a little girl, and we went to that property, and we were staying at one place down the hall. And my parents told me that the family up the hill on the upper floor, you don't talk to them. What? Why not? They're not nice people. But they're our relatives. That doesn't matter. You don't talk to them. Okay, when it was said to me in that tone of voice, I know I do not say yes, but. Okay, don't talk to them. Why not? Yeah. I still don't know. I asked around in the family. It was something, I think, on my grandmother's generation with her siblings. I have no idea what happened, but I was not supposed to talk to that family or play with their children. Oh, happy family life. By the way, when one generation does that, they're setting the example for the next generation to do it. Yeah. As a kid, I remember, okay, grandparents' generation, they didn't get along. Oh, my parents' generation, yeah, my mother and her siblings, they don't get along. But we're kids, we get along fine, everything will be okay. Well, the kids grew up, and then I remember talking to one cousin. She has, I think she has 5 kids in her family. Anyway, she only talked to one of her siblings. So my whole theory that about us as the younger generation knew not to not do what the older generation who don't know what in the world they're doing do was false. Yeah, that we wouldn't succumb to that. Well, you learn by watching. And when you see how your parents relate to their siblings, They're telling you how to relate to your siblings. And I remember thinking, I am not going to do that. Yeah, I absolutely am not going to do that. Well, there were a few difficulties in the family, but I actually kept to that. Yeah, and I'm glad, because boy, I mean, it's such a mess, isn't it? And this is also what happens from one generation to the next politically. Okay, if you look, I like to use the example of Yugoslavia. I could easily use the one of the Middle East, but in Yugoslavia, you remember when Yugoslavia was one country and then it split up into several different countries? Yeah, and those several different countries that used to be part of one started fighting with each other, warring with each other. Okay, why? Well, because however many generations in the past, your side attacked my side. Yeah. So, because many generations in the past, your side was mean to my side, even though I wasn't alive then and you weren't alive then. That means that you and I have to fight. Perfectly logical, isn't it? Yeah. Neither of us were alive then, but because people in the past fought, we are on opposing sides and we're going to continue the battle. It's really sad, very sad. Yeah. Many years ago, I went to Israel. I was invited to give some teachings, and I had a friend there who was Israeli. She had lived there for quite a long time. And she was very friendly with the Bedouins. She was friendly with the Arabs, because there's Arabs, Israelis. And so she took me out. I met the Bedouins, and it was great. And she took me to an Arab village, and, we ate the food there and walked around there. And it was so nice. This was kind of in the days of when the prime minister of Israel what was his name? It starts with an R. Rabin, yeah. So it was when he, and that's when the peace deal, you remember when Clinton had Arafat and, yeah, the Camp David Accords, representatives from both sides come together and they signed this agreement, yeah. And so when I was there, it was during those days, it looked really optimistic. Fast forward a number of years, and then when I visit, she said, now the country has become so, we used to, share with our Arab neighbors and things like that, but now, there's a strict border around Gaza, a stricter border between Israel and the West Bank, and I don't see my old friends anymore. It's not so safe to go into the Arab territories. Of course, the Arab feels the same way coming into the Israeli territories, and it was really sad seeing that, because at once it was okay, but all, and then that was in the early 90s or mid 90s, yeah, and it's gone down since then, but a whole new generation has come together to continue the war. Yeah, and actually, this conflict goes back many, many generations, And the British were very responsible in it, but nowadays, but anyway, I won't go into the politics of it. But, those things happen, and then people carry grudges from one generation to the next. Yeah. And it's really sad how much we cause each other and ourselves misery. Okay. So I want to stop causing you the misery of hunger. And we'll stop here for today, continue next month. Okay. Okay. So there's a closing chant that we do to dedicate the merit.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
So we'll rise as we wait for Venerable to leave the space and ask our friends online not to sign off just yet. And I'll invite our friend Tammy to come forward. She has a brief message for all of us here, and everyone can take your seat again.
Brief being the key word. I'm the embodiment of samsara right now because you're grounded right here while nirvana is over in the dining room or maybe the bathroom, depending on your situation. But I will keep it short, but it's very important. They brought up earlier that we have a group of people here with a program of exploring monastic life. You've been here, what, 3 weeks? Yep. So they come here to see what it's like, and I think it's long enough to give them an idea of what goes on with these amazing people, but shortened enough that there's no casualties yet, right? Everyone survived. When I first started coming here, it struck me, my first thought was how much they've given up. And I kind of stole that term from you. They gave up their lay lives. They gave up property. I'm pretty sure gave up some relationships. They gave up Baskin Robbins. I mean, there's some serious sacrifice going on. And then the more I came and kind of hung out, I realized how much they give. I mean, I show up and I feel like I used to with my aunties. I'd show up, and uncles as well. They want to feed me. They want to give me a place to sleep. They want to give me chores. You guys get that? And it's just give. And then I got more deeply into my practice and realized they're giving me access to the Dharma. They're giving me a great deal of perspective on the Dharma. They're giving me their time when, if you stay here, you'll find out they don't have any time. I'm pretty sure they don't sleep. I'm not sure how they figured this thing out yet, but they give you hope. How incredibly rare is that? So then I'm hanging out here a little more, and then I remember, wait a minute, they gave up everything, so how are they giving so much? They literally take a vow of poverty. They have absolutely nothing that they're going to give us that's not giving to them first. And many of you know this, but some of you may not. Everything they have, from what you're sitting on right now, to their sheets, their food, their medicine, their toilet paper. I mean, anything that you see here, things that we absolutely take for granted, they would not have if it weren't for the economy of generosity. That is exactly how they live. So what this is an ask, because they won't ask you. They won't ask you for anything. But I'm telling you that the support is commendable and it's needed. And there are many, many ways you can help. You can look on the website. Once a month, they have Saturday. What's it called? Help me. Thank you. Offering service Saturday, where you'll show up and do whatever's within your capabilities. And that might be all kinds of stuff. Yeah, stuff out in the forest hauling logs. You'll see nuns with chainsaws. You'll see all kinds of things. Or my case, I became an expert with the paper cutter yesterday. But you can come and offer service in person. You can offer food, and they have a list on the website of foods that they prefer, and things that they don't prefer. So you can bring food whenever you want. You can offer in so many different ways. But if you're the kind of person that wants to whip out a check, well, there's a box inside of every door here where you can, with cool envelopes, you can put a check in. Also, if you go online, there's a million ways you can give. There's a little tab that says generosity. I may have been there. And you go into there and you can offer through Venmo, you can offer a direct deposit, you can offer whatever you want, what works for you. Sky Miles, that's how they fly to get. I just learned that one recently. So there are so many ways you can give within your means. But my point is this would not exist if it weren't for the entire community. They need our support in order to move forward. And you don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to take precepts. You don't necessarily even have to believe in the things that the Buddha taught. But if you believe in making this world a better place, this is the only organization I know that's their only mission. And I promise you can go to the bathroom and go eat now. So thank you for your time.
Not yet. 2 minutes. Thank you so much, Tammy. Yeah. Anyhow, we're about to go head over